You ready? Have you heard anything else? Okay. Yeah. You ready? Have you heard anything else? Okay. Yeah. You ready? Have you heard me? Hello there. I am so glad you're here tonight. I am Kat Hobson, the host of Paranormal Experienced, and that's what you're listening to. We are going to be having so much fun tonight. You know, I'm getting ready to go up to Eureka Springs, Arkansas for a really, really fantastic conference. It's the Ozark UFO Conference, and it was the first conference I ever went to. And y'all have been hearing speakers from this year's event, and you're going to do that again tonight because this is somebody I have to tell you, I've had so much fun. The one time that I've gotten to hang out with Deb, she's got a history. We didn't know each other before I ran into her at the UFO Congress in Phoenix, and we kind of hit it off, and we were hanging out backstage. It was so much fun, and Linda Leslie walked over with these teaspoons, long spoons, and said, "Here, we're going to bend spoons." And the rest will come up in the show. But it was my first time to even think about trying something like that. And I'm pretty sure it was Deb's too. But y'all are going to love her. But first of all, she was a central figure, the character Kathie Davis, and Budd Hopkins' bestseller Intruders, The Incredible Visitations at Copley Woods. And in 1992, the book was made into a movie. It's a miniseries of the same name. And in 1994, she co-authored with her sister, Kathie, Abducted. The story of the Intruders continues. And then she did a second book, Extraordinary Contact, Life Beyond Intruders. And that one is available online at most online booksellers, including Amazon. She's a former Indiana MUFON investigator. She co-founded her own paranormal group, A Woman After My Own Heart. She co-hosts 2 podcasts, Midwest Paratalk Radio and Voices of Contact, and also co-admins the CERO Midwest Experiencer Facebook page. She is definitely, if you have an experience, I would say that she is who you want to talk to, and she does help other witnesses. So she is retired. She's a cosmetologist. She is a Red Cross volunteer, a member of MENSA, wife, mother, grandma, and great grandma. And is that new? Is the great grandma new? Let's bring her on.
Hey.
Hey. So I'm wearing my NASA shirt because I just watched Artemis take off to the skies. Maybe they're going to see some of the people that so many have been in communication with. So.
Oh, sorry. That's my earthquake alarm. I've been getting a lot of those lately, and I try to mute them, but I can't. Stop.
But
anyway,
you're in Indiana.
Yeah, I know, but I like to keep track of what's going on around me.
But do you get a lot of tremors?
We get some from the New Madrid Fault that runs down
okay.
there. You know, it's kind of it's not that far, and it kind of travels up. Indianapolis is actually built on like an old riverbed, and it's a lot of sand underneath. We had an earthquake one time when I lived at Mom's in Indy. It was a 5 something, and it shook so hard that it cracked the swimming pool. It was the underground pool, and we had white caps, and it cracked the foundation of the garage, and the curtains were swinging back and forth. And when we first heard it start, we thought the furnace was getting ready to blow up.
Oh my word!
And then when I lived up here where I live now in Kokomo, we had a small one, but the epicenter was only like 10 miles from my house. And I was sitting on the stool and it knocked me off the toilet, and it knocked all my birds off their perch. So yeah, we do get them. They're not like California where we get them every day, but we do get them here.
Yeah. That's crazy. The only time I've been, well, we've had some here. I'm in Birmingham, and we've had some, I think, because of all the mining that happened here.
Mm-hmm.
But in my corporate life, I would have to go out to California, once a month.
Mm-hmm.
And I got that spaced a little bit wider. But the first time I was there, I was, on a computer in an office. I borrowed somebody's office, and I'm just sitting there and I'm talking and I'm doing stuff, and there's stuff falling in front of my face. And I was like, what is that? And it was the ceiling tile schmutz, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, that was a tremor. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm done here. I'm ready to go home. Mm-hmm. It was very disconcerting because I'd never felt one. So that was
my first one.
Dippy.
The one in Indianapolis at Mom and Dad's, that was the first one I'd ever felt. So it was kind of freaky. I'm used to tornadoes, blizzards, and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
But not earthquakes are rare here. And the great-grandmother thing is pretty new. My great-granddaughter is 2, or not quite 2. So.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
It's very rare that you get 4 generations in this,
And we don't have very many girls. There's only her and my granddaughter are the only girls, and all the rest we have like 7 grandsons. And I had 2 boys. So and then my husband had a boy and a girl. So I mean, girls are a premium in my family.
Well, we've got 3 grandsons and 1 granddaughter, and so they may all be a little spoiled. I don't know, but.
That just goes without saying.
It does.
I mean, that's my whole job right now.
I know, right? Uh-huh. I mean, that's why we go through the other, is to get to this part.
Right.
Because we can do what we want, and then we send them home.
Yep.
And they can deal with the aftershocks.
Yep, that's the beautiful part of it.
Yes, it is.
Although I kind of hate to send my granddaughter home. She's my little mini me. Now she's 20 years old, and she's going to Purdue, and she's going to be a computer scientist, and she's really smart. But she is my little mini me. She acts like me. She thinks like me. We have conversations, and she says, "Don't tell Mom and Dad." I'm like, "Are you kidding?"
You don't tell Mom and Dad.
I'm grandma. We don't do that.
Yeah, there's a code.
Yeah, but it's grandma code.
Yeah, there is.
Yes.
But well. I have to ask you, because I've heard from different people that some of the things that you experienced that were in the books and movie and everything, those are generational. Has anybody else been affected in your family by that? Because I've never really thought about that, but since we're talking about family.
I didn't know it for the longest time until Budd actually started to come out and interview the family when he was starting the investigation after the June 3083 thing that he wrote about in Intruders. Anyway, but my mom apparently had something happen to her when she was like a kid, maybe 7 or so, that I didn't even know about. And she started telling him about it. And it was the only time that I think she ever really said anything about anything like that in her life.
Oh, wow.
And then of course, my sister, she's 11 years older than me, but she had something. Now, my other sister who's younger and my brother who's younger, they don't think they've had anything like me and Kathie have, but they have had paranormal things happen to them. I don't know. For me, that seems all to be connected somehow. And,
I think it is connected.
Yeah. And my father, he's never specifically said anything, but my grandma used to say my dad was psychic, and weird things happened around him, that he was born with a veil over his face, which I didn't know what that meant for years, but I guess it meant his, sack was intact or something. Right. But that old wives' tale that mean you're going to be psychic. and he was, I will tell you that. But, and then my granddaughter, like I said, she's almost 20, and she's never really talked about it. And we don't talk about it, her and I, I've never had a conversation with her about it. I'm pretty sure at her age now, she knows most everything. But when she was probably 3 or 4, she went through a little spell where she had what they call night terrors and scream and bloody murder. And she told her father that the aliens were trying to come through her window and take her. And, when my kids were little and all this was going on at mom and dad's house, we tried very hard not to talk about it within earshot of them, around them, for 2 reasons. Number one, we didn't want to scare them. And number 2, if sometime in the future that they did have things they wanted to explore, we didn't want to like contaminate their subconscious with stuff, but mostly I just didn't want them to be scared.
Sure.
And so we had a rule kind of like that. We didn't talk about it around the kids. Of course, when they get a little older and they're sneaky, especially boys, we tried to be more careful, but little ears are around. But anyway, I had that. Robbie asked me when Emma was born they didn't want anything like that being talked about around her. And at that point, things were going to be on TV that we didn't have to deal with back in the 80s. But now there's stuff on TV. So I was very cautious every time she came to spend the night, which was practically every weekend. And I'd see a commercial come on TV or something that even was remotely like that, I would change the channel really quick, So when this came up, my son called me and he was really mad at me. And he's like, what did you guys tell her? I'm like, we didn't tell her anything. And I was devastated for multiple reasons, not only because he was angry at me for something I didn't do or have control over, but also what was my granddaughter dealing with? She's just a kid, like 4 or 5 years old. And he said, well, she can't come over to your house anymore for a while until we get this under control. I'm like, okay, I completely understand, but it broke my heart. So it was several months, got her calmed down and everything. And he, bless his heart, I love my son. He got her a radio, got her a nightlight, got her special curtains. He even made anti-alien go away spray out of a bottle of Glade air freshener. He put a label on it. We had his little ritual he did with her every night, and she finally calmed down and it stopped, and it never happened again. And then she eventually, came back, and he realized that we didn't have anything to do with it. Because my son, both my kids were traumatized by it when they were little. And my oldest son, he won't even talk about it. And, I asked him one time, I said, hey, can you make it? He does 3D printing. I said, could you 3D print me an alien head of the sculpture that I made years ago? And he's like, no. So, yeah, I mean, it scared the hell out of them when they were little. And they still, especially my older son, still hasn't really, he doesn't want to have anything to do with it or talk about it. But so fast forward, like my granddaughter's 14 or 15 now. She's at my house hanging out, spending the weekend. We're watching TV, and Ancient Aliens commercial comes on across the TV. So I instinctively grab the remote and I'm going to change the channel, right away. And then I thought, wait a minute, she probably just hears more at high school.
Probably watches it. I mean,
she probably sees it. I mean, she's in high school. I'm like, I just kind of ignored it. Like I didn't bring any attention to it. Right. And after the commercial passed, she turned around to me and she said, hey, Nene, because she called me Nene. She goes, hey, Nene. And I said, hey, what? She goes, do you believe in aliens? And I'm like, oh. And I just looked at her and said, yes. That's it. Yep. And she looked at me and she said, good. So do I. And I said, cool. And that was it, the end of the conversation. But in my mind, I'm thinking, now she knows. I know she can't talk to her dad or her mom about any of this ever, because her dad can't even bring himself to talk about it with me. But now she knows she has someone she can talk to if she ever needs to.
Right.
So that made me feel better. So I don't know whether that generation is involved or not. I kind of got a feeling might be, but I don't know for sure.
Well, I mean, it sounds like she was experiencing, and maybe the parental reaction put the kibosh on it, or at least slowed it down for some time.
I don't
So,
know.
I mean,
But
there's no way to know
I'm glad whatever it
without
was
asking.
stopped. And, you know, I'm not ever going to bring it up with her because that's on her time and her when she wants to. She just, but she knows that she can. That's the important thing. So,
well, you know, that is the important thing, because I can't imagine anything worse than having something go on that you don't feel like you can control, well, because you can't.
Right.
And then, you know, and there not being any outlet for that. That's got to just expound it, because,
and, you know, what happened to me that compelled me into the, you know, to public with it was 43 years ago, something like that. And back then we didn't have the internet, we didn't have cell phones, you know, we didn't have anything like that. And I was in Indiana, you know, in the middle of nowhere. I was fortunate because I had family and friends who experienced these things with me. So I did have a small group around me that I could talk to about it occasionally, you know, but as far as being outside of the family, or, you know, that small wheelhouse, that I was pretty much, I felt like, sometimes I felt like I was on an island in the middle of nowhere, you know, and we wouldn't talk about it. We didn't talk about this stuff every day, but when things happened, we talked about it, you know. So I was more lucky than most people back then. Now you have the internet, you have support groups online, Zoom chats, all that. And I mean, it's so much better than it was. But back then, you know, and so I felt fortunate. And that's why, one of the reasons why I spoke up after Budd wrote Intruders, he had convinced my family and myself that us telling our story could help people. And
well, it did help people.
Yeah, and I think it has. Yeah, and that was the catalyst for me to come and speak publicly, because I was not a public speaker and I was so bashful. We talked about this prior to the show starting. I hate the sound of my own voice. You know, and I always feel like I feel like I could have said things better. I don't have a great command of words, you know, and so I'll hear myself say something and then I think, God, I should have said it this way. It would have made more sense, you know. But hopefully what I've done over the last, you know, 35 years has helped, you know, some people feel more comfortable about coming forward. And yeah.
Well, you know, it's, you know, we were talking about Nancy. There's so much, and she had a very unusual experience from my understanding, as a rule. And because there's very few times that, and I think we talked about this the last time we talked, that she was allowed to visit with her child and stuff. And, you know, so I think that, I don't think she's crazy. I mean, people saw the craft around where she lived and stuff. I mean, it wasn't like a, you know, that kind of thing. But she didn't really have support. And that's, I think, I agree with you. The way that so many different organizations have experiencer groups, and I was unaware of, I mean, at Ozark, almost everyone there is an experiencer. I mean, they are. That's why they go there, you know, but because it is such a personal, small group, relatively speaking. It's a fantastic conference because of that. And although they would probably rather me say, everybody has to go now, because you would really love that. But I mean, I feel that way about it. It's the best one going.
Absolutely.
Until I got to, where was I? Contact. I got to Contact in the desert. And I didn't even know about experiencer groups. I didn't. I've done paranormal experience for 10 years. And that was my first big UFO conference. And that is quite a conference. And it was bizarre because I'm walking down through the lobby area and all these people are gathered around a bar. And some of them are loud and some of them are sad and some of them are, and I went and found somebody and I was like, what are they doing? So that's the experiencer group that they're sharing. And you can't go in there as media, but you can go in there as an experiencer. But you cannot take any, you can't be media in there. And I'm like, well, I wouldn't be media in there. I wouldn't do that. Apparently some people would, so they have rules.
Oh yeah.
And because that's such a personal thing. And some people deal with it, some people don't. I'm really fortunate to have a lot of friends that mediate some of those, and I've been allowed to go. I had to take my tag off and, just be me. They probably weren't real thrilled with that either because I ask questions. But
I ask questions too.
Because I've had experiences, but I don't always trust that that's what that was, because
and sometimes it's hard for people to speak about their experiences, and it actually helps them to speak more when you ask the right questions.
So, especially if it's a new experience, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I just think that's cool that you do that.
Do what?
Just that you help other experiencers, that you provide, because I just think that you even do a Facebook page for that. I mean,
it's a private Facebook page, CERO, the group CERO that Yvonne Smith started out in California. Mm-hmm. They got like a little Midwest part. I don't know, poor Yvonne, I kind of glommed onto her, especially after Budd passed away. I actually met her through Budd, and she's a few years older than me, but not much, but I kind of looked up to her. And
she's really nice.
She's a super nice lady and very, she does a lot for experiencers. And then I didn't see her for a long time. And then I got asked to go to Brazil and speak in Brazil. And it just so happened that she was also there. And I was terrified because I went to this strange country that I couldn't speak the language all by myself, which I was proud of myself that I did that because I'm a wuss. But
I don't think you're a wuss.
But so when I saw her there, I'm like, oh my God. And I kind of glommed back on her again. And I never let go at that point. Now she's like family to me. But, she wanted to extend the reach of helping people. And so, and it was actually the brainchild of a gal, another member of CERO, and Beverly. And they asked me if I would co-host with her on this Facebook page. So I said, yeah. And it's been fun. It's private. You have to have an invitation there, but we keep it private for the protection of the people there so that people can share their stories with no judgment. And we don't let people come in that are like farming for guests for their podcasts and things like that. Not you, I mean, but like
but a lot of people would.
They do that, and they don't really care about the actual people involved through their stories. And we care about them. We want them to know that we hear them.
Well, you are them.
We are them. And I don't always have answers, and I can't always relate to every single experience that other people have. I haven't had the experiences, and I don't judge anybody else's experience, because I can only speak on my own. But I can be an ear. I can be a supportive shoulder to cry on, so to speak. I'm a safe place that you can tell your story and not have to worry about me judging you or anybody else. Just get it out. Sometimes just getting it out, hearing it come out of your mouth can change your whole
alleviates some
perspective
of the
on things.
mystery.
Yeah, it changes your whole,
or
you can recognize things or figure things out you might not have been able to do if you'd have kept it all inside. So that's one of the things I like. Well, and I'm also, I participate with the John Mack Institute, has a monthly Zoom meeting for experiencers, and I often participate in that as well. I don't share a lot of times, but I find it fascinating, and I try to like lend, you know, if I have things that I've experienced that can help confirm, you know, what other people are talking about, I try to lend that, you know, and just be a supportive person in that group as well. And, you know, when I first met Budd, the first time I went to New York, long ago, one of the first things that he did was he hooked me up with what he called his buddy system. And he did that before I even got to New York. He introduced me to a gal who was a few years older than me, who had had some time to deal with what she'd been dealing with and was doing well. And she kind of took me under her wing, and we talked on the phone. And she always told me, anytime you feel afraid or you think something's going on, call me. I don't care what time it is, day or night, 24/7. You know, and all the buddies did this for each other. And then when I got to New York, I was fortunate enough to be there during one of his, he actually conducted like group sessions in his studio apartment of experiencers who just wanted to get together and share their experiences and, you know, fellowship and everything. People would come in and we would talk about the things that we'd seen and what we knew and what had happened to us. And then, you know, we'd eat and have coffee and whatever. I met Whitley Strieber there. That's where I met Whitley. I met Linda Howe there. I met so many people there at his the group sessions that he had there. Some people I still talk to this day, you know, and it's been 35 years, you know. And when we meet each other again, it's almost like we may not talk for 10 years, but as soon as we see each other, it's like we were just together yesterday. We don't skip a beat. It's like we're all connected somehow. And it's a wonderful thing. And,
well, you are all connected. I mean,
and it's great. So I want everybody to experience that if they can. Yeah, it helps so much.
Well, I'll tell you, Whitley is, he's an interesting person. I did a workshop that he did at Contact, and it was probably the best workshop I've ever participated in. And I, you know, afterward I was talking to him, and it was so weird because it was a, at the end, he was like, if you've had experiences, well, just sit back and visualize it and meditate on it and see if you can see who you interacted with. And it was so weird because I had not ever tried to do that. And the person that I did interact with looked nothing like the cover of Contact. And what came to me in that meditation was that type of alien. And I was just kind of like, why is that there? You know? And so when I was starting to leave, I said, that was a really great workshop. And I appreciate, you know, you taking the time to do this, because it was at the end of the conference. And I said, but I've got to tell you that as far as I know, I have never interacted with what you experienced. That's not, you know, who was there. And I said, so I'm a little bit concerned and curious about why that's who came through my meditation. He's like, well, then you have met them. And I said, well, okay. I just figured it's because I knew the cover of your book, but okay. I mean, because projection.
Yeah, well.
But he was like, well, with what we did, he said, almost everybody who comes to these events has had experiences that they may not remember.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the alien that they see the most. And because it's fairly reptilian, it was very, well, I think it is reptilian. And I was just kind of like, I think I would have remembered that. I mean, so I find it interesting that the subconscious can be manipulated. And hi, Raymond and chat. But, it's just so odd to me that that's a fact.
Well, I can tell you that the human mind, I mean, I speak for my own human mind. I've had traumatic experiences in my life that have nothing to do with paranormal or UFO related stuff or non-human intelligence. And in one particular instance, I witnessed somebody die, and my mind went blank for probably 3 months. I didn't remember hearing the gunshot or anything, even though there was no way I could not hear it.
Right.
But then one day I woke up, I was almost half asleep. I was in that mid state before you're not really asleep, but you're not really awake. And actually that's pretty much what hypnosis is, in that super relaxed state, right before you slip off into la la land. And right at that point I heard and I shot straight up in bed, and my eyes were open, and I saw the whole thing play out in my, like a TV screen on my wall. And I remembered, but it took about 3 months. And I talked to my psychologist about it when, because obviously I was going through therapy, and he explained to me that sometimes your mind can protect you from things that it's not ready to deal with. But once, it feels something inside of you feels like you're ready to be able to deal with it, it'll come. That's why I've had regression a few times, but not very many. It's always been with Budd, except one time it was Dr. Clamar. That's the psychiatrist that I first met in New York that he introduced me to, who was also the woman that he trained under. And I didn't remember a whole lot of new stuff with regression, but I did remember some details of things, and a couple of things, that once I, started to remember it, it just like when I heard the gunshot, it all just came flooding back. But there's still maybe, like, for instance, just the June 3083 incident, I still only remember about 15 minutes of, we figure I was missing for about an hour and 15 minutes. And I only remember about maybe 10 or 15 minutes of that to this day. And I have zero desire. Now, I do remember a little more now. Bits and pieces have come back to me over the years, but I still don't remember the whole thing. And I don't care if I do or not. It's a moot point.
Right.
I feel like if it's not broke, I'm functioning great. And if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean?
That's usually my rule of thumb too.
So, but I feel like when I'm ready to remember, I will, and then there's people, and there's people also, there's, researchers and even experiencers who feel like that they, being whatever non-human intelligence that you've had contact with, have somehow blocked your memory. That could be too. I don't know. It's all
I think
theory.
They give you screen memories too.
At that as well, but it's all theory. It's just everybody's best guess. So I can only speak for myself when I know from my own experience with other things outside of these, that my mind has a way of protecting me from things that I can't handle. So I'm going to give myself credit for that first. Then what's left, they can have credit for.
Well, but it's really true because we do have self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just so bizarre that
Everything is bizarre. Life is
it
bizarre.
is. But, we both knew Calvin Parker.
Oh, yeah.
And he did not get any of that protection. He did not get any kind of, let's make this easy kind of thing, and that was the strangest encounter that I've heard of.
And it shook him to his core.
He was shook to his core until he passed. He
never, he never felt comfortable completely.
Mm-hmm.
He did more as he got older, but
he could talk about it.
He could talk about it. Yeah, he couldn't even talk about it for the longest time. Calvin was probably one of the sweetest, most genuine, kind souls I ever met in my life. And when he told you something, you knew he was telling you the truth. You could feel it in your soul, and what happened to him that night with Charlie just rocked his world, and it never got straight, never got right.
Well, I'm so glad that he insisted that they go to the police station.
Yeah.
Because there was that recording of they were recorded talking about it. Mm-hmm. So he never had a nobody believes you thing, I mean.
Well, he probably did, but I mean, he had the recording and then he had Charlie. I mean, and then there were, I guess, a lot of witnesses come about later.
Yeah. Well, there were, because even now, because I was speaking at a conference in Orange Beach, Alabama, and I talked about Calvin's case, and a woman came up to me after that discussion, and she said, "I just want you to know that he was telling the truth." I was like, "Well, I never doubted that." I mean, I said, "But how do you know?" She said, "Because I saw that. It was like a blue egg. Mm-hmm. And I saw that land, and it was right on the river, and he was telling the truth." I was like, "Well, I'm glad that you did, because, I believed him, but I'm sure that so many people might not have." There are a lot of people that saw that. I mean, that was not happening in a void, and it was right down by where they build the stuff.
Yeah, I think a lot of people saw it,
Yeah. Well, there were two other witnesses that were just not far from them. Mm-hmm. A couple Spoonem, Sparker and whatever. And, they experienced that too. They saw one of the creatures. Mm-hmm. So that swam past them. That, to me, I mean, there was so much validation of that case. And he so much wished that it had never happened to him.
Yeah, he did. It changed his life in a lot of ways.
It made him fearful, and I don't think he was fearful before that.
He probably was not. I didn't know him before that happened. So, but from what he said,
he didn't strike me as, because he was
only 17. Like he was always bashful, though. I mean, he was just a bashful, sweet guy.
Yeah. And when we were in Phoenix, we had lunch together a lot because, I think he was comfortable because we sounded like each other. We were probably the only 3 Southerners in that whole room. But, yeah. And Waynette, I still just love Waynette. So there's some good people. Mm-hmm. So, and every so often I'll be doing something else. Well, they're good. I mean, yeah. But I have found in this realm that people tend to be. I mean, my first ufologist that I ever interviewed was Stanton Friedman. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I just started paranormal experience, but I didn't have a whole lot of, knowledge about booking guests or anything. So I just called him. And I got his phone number and I called him. I left a voicemail and he called me back and I answered on my watch. And he said, "This is Stanton Friedman and somebody has called me from this number." And I was like, I'm going to have to call you back. You know, I got to go. So I had to get to a phone. I called him. I told him why. But, you know, he was one of the nicest people I've ever known. And if I had a question, he explained whatever I was, you know, pondering. And he turned out to be a good friend. And that's what I have found with the majority of people that I've talked to in this field, because I have a genuine curiosity, because I do know that this is real. And I don't know why people try to ridicule people that have experiences, and it really ticks me off too. But I try to give a platform. And, you know, he never discounted any of this stuff. And when I first started talking to him, because he was kind of gruff sounding, he wasn't gruff, but he was gruff sounding. And so I was at first kind of intimidated by him. And then I found out how kind he was. And he just became one of my heroes. And in fact, I interviewed him the Wednesday night before he passed away. And he was going to the doctor because he didn't feel good. And so he only wanted to do an hour. And I was like, that's okay. I'll line somebody else up for the second one. It doesn't matter. And so then when we got to the end of the hour, he's like, you know, I think I might could just stay on. I was like, well, you have a doctor's appointment because you don't feel good. And I have somebody coming on. It's okay. And so I wish so much now that I had just brought my friend on and, you know, done that other hour, but I don't think he was really up for it. And then, you know, Chase called me to tell me that he had died. And that was so.
Didn't he pass away in an airport going to a conference or something? You know, well, he died doing what he loved to do, because he loves to go and speak on these things. He was, I probably heard a dozen of his talks over the years. I sat in and listened to him, and I met him a few times and, you know, got some pictures with him. He's a nice guy. I figured Kathie Martin and him were like two peas in a pod. And I know what a kind person I figured Stan had to be a good guy for Kathie to be friends with him and work with him
Absolutely.
The way she did for so long. So
and that was such a good working relationship.
It really was. Yeah.
I mean, they accomplished so much.
Mm-hmm.
And they
wrote some great books.
Yes, they did. And you know, it was so funny because I actually went 2 years ago, I think, 2 trips back to Vegas, because when David plays poker, I go and explore things. And I actually took a Area 51 tour.
Oh, neat.
And I was just kind of, oh, please, it's just that touristy thing. I mean, you don't see anything but the white track that runs up to the hill. But, you know, it was, the tour guide was good. He made it a lot of fun. And we got to go to Green Lake, and we, you know, all the stuff that I love about the desert, I got to see. And we went to the little alien. So, you know, that was fun to get the worst burger in the world. So, you know, it was just like, it wasn't a bad burger. I just don't do bread. So, you know, it was just the meat. But it was so interesting because you can go and do stuff like that, but they have a bookstore. And they did not have any of Stanton's books. And I complained about that. And so they were like, well, I said, he was the original, you know, civilian investigator of this event. And why aren't there books by him here? They had one of Kathie's. So I figured probably they were sold out and the girl didn't know anything about it. But I was just like, you need to have Stanton Friedman's books in here, because he is who put this place on the map. So there you go. So I'll probably never be allowed back in there, but that's okay. So, but he just instilled such interest in so many things.
And he brought so much credibility to the entire subject. He was so smart. And with, what he did, what he did outside of that, his job and everything, he really just, he lent so much credibility to the whole subject. It got the attention of people outside of the community, the UFO community. Yeah.
Took the woo out of it. Mm-hmm. Did you ever hear him talk about when he worked in the deserts when they were developing the bombs and stuff?
I think I probably have. I couldn't tell you exactly what he said, but I've sat through so many of his talks, and I've sat at so many tables with him afterwards, with the groups of people. So I'm sure I have.
I was stunned. I mean, he had so much knowledge about so much life experience with some really scary things.
Right.
But, well, speaking of which, really scary things, I think that your experiences were kind of scary. But do you want to tell people about you? Because we've just been chit-chatting and stuff, and sure. I know that people are not sitting here to listen to me talk, but how long ago did you have your first experience?
I've had weird experiences my whole life. My earliest memory is probably about 7 years old, 6 years old, right around kindergarten age. Went with my sister up to Detroit to visit friends for a weekend and ended up missing. And the police were called to look for me. And my older sister is actually the one who found me, the one I tell you about. She's almost 12 years older than me. And during that strange period of time when I was missing, I actually started out playing kickball in the backyard with my friend, and somebody kicked the ball over the fence, and I went over the fence to get it. And when I got the ball, I suddenly became disoriented and didn't know where I was. I wasn't in a place I'd never been before. So, I mean, I was in a whole different state, but somehow I got turned around and didn't recognize the house. And I remember walking around the front of the house. It was a cul-de-sac, and I thought, well, I think this is where I'm supposed to be. I remember thinking that. The door was open. I walked in. There was a kid there in the house, about the same age and size as me. And I didn't recognize him. And things in the house were weird. I thought I recognized some of the furniture and stuff, but things were in wrong places, like chairs on tables instead of at tables and stuff like that. And I got a little paranoid. I got a little freaky, a little afraid, and I started to take off out the door. And he stopped me. And he's like, "Will you want to come and play with me? I have some really cool toys." And well, I heard toys, and I was like, okay. So I went with him to a room in this house. But when the door opened, this room was huge. I mean, just really huge. And I was just a little kid, and I just remember thinking, wow, this is big. And there were no lights or anything in it, but it was all bright white. And I saw some red lights on the wall. The center of the floor was sunk down a little bit, like almost this, like sunken living room from the 70s. You remember those? And you could step down and sit on them. And at some point, I was sitting on the ledge in this sunken area, and he hands me his toy thing that it reminded me of something we used to make when I was a kid out of shoeboxes. Where you just cut a hole and run some strings across them, and then make your own little guitar. And this thing was sitting across my lap and my legs. And he told me to pluck the strings. Well, I did, and something hurt me. And I got afraid, and I jumped up and I tried to run out the door. And when I got out the playroom door back into the house part to the front door, he was suddenly in front of me, and he says, "You don't leave yet." And at the same time, who I thought was his mother came from behind me in some other room. and came storming out. And she says, "Who is this girl? She does not belong here. She needs to leave right now." And the second she said that, it was like someone shoved me out the door. But I don't remember seeing anybody touch me. It just felt like I was just, some force just shoved me out the door. And when I regained my footing on the pathway to the sidewalk, I looked up and there was my sister standing there, just looking at me. And I just remember thinking, "Oh, it's my sister." I'm, relief washed over me. I pretty much just forgot about everything. All I could think about was how happy I was to see her.
Sure.
And I ran up to her and grabbed her hand. I don't recall having any conversation with her whatsoever, and she doesn't recall having any conversation with me, but she does remember finding me at that house. And she took me back to where I was supposed to be, and the police were there, and the people that we were visiting, they had been all there looking for me, and my sister found me. She knew where to go for some reason. And then we went home and didn't speak about it for years and years. And then we talked about it. When Budd came, he says, the first time he came to visit, of course, the whole family was there. And we were telling him all the weird stuff that's happened to all of us over the years, mostly paranormal stuff, honestly.
Right.
And he said, well, he asked my mom, he's like, "Well, Janet, is there any other strange things that involved Debbie that you could remember?" And she brought up the fact that I had been missing for a whole day, and the police up there in Detroit, Michigan had been looking for me. And we started the conversation. My sister was there. She's like, "I think I can she said, "I think I still know the phone number to the place where we went." And, because this was years ago when I was little, but she had remained friends with this girl over, the decades.
Sure.
And she was able to get the mother on the phone. She had to be in her 80s at that point. And she was able to get her on the phone, and she talked to Budd. And she told Budd, yeah, she was missing for the whole day. We were scared to death. We thought something horrible had happened to her. She said, "I felt so bad." So that was confirmed. And then something weird happened to me when I was, I think, 16 or 17. I was out hanging around with some friends. One at the time, one of my best friends and her friend, which I had just met that night. We'd been to the skating rink. And my friend was a little bit older than me. She had her own car. We'd been to the skating rink, and her boyfriend had left early, said he was going to go home. So, yeah, she decided that we needed to go out and drive out to his farmhouse where his parents lived to make sure his car was there and he was doing what he was supposed to do,
Sure.
Teenage girls stalking their boyfriends and whatnot. This was way out in the boonies on the far, far east, northeast side of India. Back then, it was nothing but fields and woods, and nothing was there. So we're out buzzing around well after midnight looking for Kenny's car at his house, right? And somewhere along the road, I notice a light in the sky acting weird and flashy. And I looked up and I'm like, "Oh, look, there's a UFO." And I kind of laughed a little bit. And the girl in the back seat, whom I didn't know, flipped out. She was like, she threw herself on the floorboard behind the seats, and she started crying, and she's like, "Don't say that, don't say that." And she's scared. And I looked over at my friend, and I'm like, "What is wrong with your friend?" She kind of looked at me like, "Okay," And I said, "Look, that light's acting weirder and weirder." And it was getting bigger. And then the next thing I remember, we are going in a different direction. My friend who's driving, she's like, "Oh my God, my mom and dad are going to be up. Their alarm's about to go off in like half an hour. We got to hurry up and get home, or we're going to get busted for being out driving around." Because my mom thought I was spending the night with her.
Oh, okay.
We
remember those days.
We dropped off this girl who was freaked out. And then we got to my girlfriend's house, and we literally, because we had an escape hatch in she did this all the time. So we climbed in her bedroom window. We got in bed under the covers just in time to hear her parents' alarm go off, to get up to go to work, right? So we just made it, right? Then I started remembering the night was weird. And I remember sitting in the car, but the car was enveloped in this like black smoke. I couldn't see anything, like black fog or black smoke. And then it felt like someone was pulling my legs out the car door, pulling me out of the car by my legs. And I was trying to resist. And I'm like, that is the weirdest dream I ever had. And that was in the fall. And then let's see, I think I was 17 when that happened. And then I got married in 78. And I got married because I thought I was pregnant. Well, I was pregnant. I got when we were engaged, we were going to get married in June, but we moved our wedding up to April because I was pregnant. And back, this was the 70s, you know, it was a different time. You know what I'm saying?
It was a different time.
It was a different time. And there were different attitudes about that than there is now. So anyway, I moved my wedding date up because it was confirmed. I was still living with my parents. They took me to the doctor and I had a pregnancy test and a physical exam. And the doctor's like, yeah, you're pregnant, you know. And
yeah.
We didn't want to be pregnant, but okay. You know, I mean, we wanted kids, but not now. And I thought I got pregnant in December, but he thought I was a little bit farther along because the way everything looked, you know, in my exam.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Well, I'm 17. I don't argue with the doctor. And I'm like, okay, whatever, you know. So I go home. We get used to the idea of me going to have a baby. And then come around March or so, I'm babysitting for my sister. And I have another weird night at my sister's house. My sister, Kathie, had 4 little kids, little stair steps, right? Yeah. And I think Rusty was probably, I don't know, 2 or 3. They were little. I was laying on the couch, and I remember listening to Bob Newhart on the TV. It was a Saturday night, I think. And the front door was open. I mean, you could do that back then. It was a nice evening. Kids were in bed asleep. And I feel this stroking going down my spine because I've got my back to the TV and the door on my face to the cushion of the couch, you know. And at first I jumped, startled me. And then I immediately thought, oh, it's just Sissy, my little niece. And I felt like she crawled up next to me and I fell right to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, I was in her bed, which is where I would always crash whenever I spent the night anyway. But I don't remember how I got there. But I managed to get in there. But I woke up and I thought, oh my God, there's something wrong with my baby. And I went to the bathroom to check and make sure everything looked all right. And it did. But I could not shake the feeling that something was wrong and something weird was happening. And I told, again, the girl that I had been with in the fall, spying on her boyfriend, you know, we were still hanging out regularly. And she had come over to get me one day. And I told her, I said, I think there's something wrong with my baby. I don't know what I should do. She goes, well, are you bleeding? You know, all this. And I'm like, no, I just don't feel right. Something's wrong. And she said, well, I'm going to ready to go to the Planned Parenthood to get my birth control pills. She said, why don't you come with me? You can get a free pregnancy test there. And then when you get a positive pregnancy test, you'll calm down. You know, basically, she's like, shut up and calm down. Come on, let's go do this. Right. So I went with her. And only thing I remember is when the nurse came out and said, you're not pregnant. And if you don't have your period in another week, you need to contact your physician. And my mind just went blank. And I looked at her and she looked at me and she like drugged me out to her car. And I started crying in the car and she's trying to calm me down. So I go home and I tell my mom something's wrong and I have to go to the doctor right away. So she calls the doctor and they get me in. They do another pregnancy test and they do a pelvic exam again. They have me get dressed and mom and I go in his little room, his office, doctor's office, has his little office in the office.
Right.
And he says, you're not pregnant. And I'm like, how can I not be pregnant? I've been pregnant for the last 2.5 months, almost 3 months. And he says, we see this sometimes, especially in young women. And I remember my mom saying, well, does she need a DNC? I mean, we didn't see anything. And he said, no, she doesn't. Everything looks completely normal. And I'm stunned and I'm speechless. And he looks up at me and he says, my advice to you is that you forget this ever happened. You're young and you'll have other opportunities and you'll have plenty of children. You'll have as many children as you want. There's nothing wrong with you. You're healthy. Just forget this ever happened. And again, this was the 70s. I was a 17-year-old girl. You don't talk back to a man, especially a doctor.
So he had obviously seen this before that.
He said, we see this sometimes. It's not that unusual for a girl my age. So I left out of there thinking, if you think I'm not going to remember this, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
But you know what? We never spoke of it again. My fiance and I, we went ahead and got married in April because everything is already taken care of. And then we went on to have 2 boys, pretty soon after that. Yeah. And then weirdly enough, after we got married, and I think this was in like hot summer of 78, maybe, we lived in an attic apartment upstairs in downtown Indy, in not a great neighborhood. It was hotter than hammer hell in this apartment, no air conditioning. And it was an attic, so all the heat rose, little bitty place.
Yeah.
And I remember one night I was awakened because there were 2 guys standing at the foot of my bed. I call them the gray guys, the little short, the little guys with the big heads and the black eyes.
Yeah.
Short ones. And I slipped. My husband was in bed next to me, and I slipped up in the bed, kind of startled. And I remember thinking, oh my God, don't touch me. If you just don't touch me, I'll be all right. And the instant that I thought that, and that terror just swept over me, it went away. And I was suddenly calm. And there was a conversation between them, and I don't recall a lot of what was said, but one of them was holding something that looked like a little shoebox size. Again, it was a black box, and it had a red light on top of it, or coming out from the top of it, a hole or something. And it kind of just floated over to me and sat down on my lap. And I remember saying or thinking or something, what is this? Can I have it? And immediately he came back with, no, you can't have this. But I want you to see it. And once you see it again, you'll know what it's for and how to use it. And then it floats back over to him. They kind of glide back away from the foot of the bed a little bit. And then they just kind of get all fuzzy and light, and then they're gone. And I immediately turned around and started shaking my husband and saying, wake up, wake up. You're not going to believe what just happened. Wake. And he would not wake up. And I know none of it makes any sense. It all sounds crazy. But I just slid back down in the bed and fell asleep. But when I woke up the next morning, I remembered everything. So I immediately told him, I'm like, I tried to wake you up last night. Some of the weirdest happened in the bedroom and you would not wake up. And I told him. And he looked at me like I was nuts. And he says, what did you eat for dinner? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, whatever it is, don't eat it again, because it obviously didn't agree with you. I'm like, you are not funny. Then I called Mom, because we always told Mom when the weird stuff happened. And I told her about it. And, Bud asked her, and years later, she said, I remember when she called me and told me this. She was adamant that it was not a dream, that she was wide awake, and that she tried to wake up, Charlie. And it was right. And I didn't realize this until not too terribly long ago, but I had either just got pregnant with my oldest son, like within a week or so of this happening, or got pregnant right after I had this encounter, like a week or so. I mean, the timing is like right there. And then when I had my son, he was born 6 weeks premature. I went into heart failure, kidney failure, liver failure. I got eclampsia, and I had a near-death experience that was unbelievable, which also changed me and my life. And this was even before June 30, 83. And
Wow.
So I had that. And then I think I had one last physical after the June 30, 83 encounter. Then Mom and I had another sighting in April of 84 over the house, big, like not really a triangle, but more like a chevron shaped thing over the house with the block behind it. So we had a sighting, Mom and I did. And then all kinds of weird little paranormal things really started ramping up after the 83 incident. And then I think the last physical incident that I had with this non-human intelligence, whatever it was, with other people. I was with my late husband and our housemate and her daughter out on the farm by the time we moved up here. And we witnessed something walk down the road toward us. And he tried to record it on the video camera, but 18 minutes of the videotape, when the little timer thing on the videotape, it jumped 18 minutes. And it went from us outside saying, and you could hear her daughter say, "Mama, what's that walking down the road towards us?" And then you hear her squeal. And then it jumps 18 minutes forward on the tape, and you can hear him trying to record the cows moving and carrying on the barn next to the house. And just, it was a weird night. And that happened, like, I had just had a complete hysterectomy. And that was the last time I had any kind of real physical light contact like that. But from that point on, I mean, I was already in the process of losing my fear. And early on, after the June 30, 83 incident, someone had told me something that fear, I needed to get control of my fear, because fear would only slow the process, whatever that means. And I had been working on that. Things in me had started changing. After the June 30, 83 incident that was written about in Intruders, something in me started changing. I always say that night, it's like part of me died and a new part of me got born. I started to see things differently and see people differently. I started to discover I had ability to sense things, and it got stronger. And I started seeing images. I could be driving down the street, but I'd get this image, this flash, or hear a phrase or a thought or an idea, and I'd have to write it down before, and then it would leave me alone and I'd be fine. And it would wake me up in the middle of the night sometimes, and I'd have to write.
Were you agitated until you did that?
Yeah, I couldn't focus on anything else but that until I wrote it down. Once I got it out of here and put it somewhere where it wouldn't be lost, I could go on about my business.
Yeah.
So, and that went on for a long time. And it was things like light can be used for healing and moving things, transportation, and even nutrition, just weird stuff, And the images that I drew, I kept seeing them on a black wall, like granite, shiny, cold, hard, black wall somewhere, and they were like carved into it. I could put my finger in it and feel it, these shapes and almost hieroglyph-like things. One of the drawings that I did of something I saw on a wall ended up to be the Wi-Fi signal shape, like 25 years later.
Oh my gosh.
Weird. How weird is that? And then there are other things that I drew. There were a couple of things that I saw that ended up in crops in England back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Same exact thing. But I wasn't the only person doing this. I was just the only person that was dumb enough to tell everybody I was doing it, because I was like, I can't believe this. But I found out that I was only one of many, And so anyway, a lot of weird things started happening. Like I said, I started paranormal stuff started ramping up. I started getting interested in paranormal stuff. I recorded my first EVP like 30 years ago, and that was it. I was done. It was so amazing, and it just changed. Again, it changed the whole direction of the way my brain was working. This EVP was an old man's voice, and he said, "Are the spirits listening?" And then the little voice behind it sounded like a kid, said, "Can I listen too?" And I looked up at my nephew, and I'm like, "Oh, we're the spirits somewhere else. Somebody's listening to us." And it was like, bam, that was it. I was done.
That's pretty cool. Because an EVP got me the first time too, because there wasn't anybody there.
I have, when I speak in Eureka Springs, I'm going to bring a couple of my favorite EVPs that are going to blow your mind. When you think about paranormal TV shows and they show those EVPs where you got to kind of, you got to kind of guess what it says or whatever. Not these. I throw those away. This sounded like a woman was sitting next to me and she leaned into the microphone to say what she said. And I've got video. I was actually sitting right here where I'm at now, getting ready to do a podcast with Greg. It's back when we were still doing the paranormal. We were doing the Midwest Paratalk, kind of on hiatus right now, but Greg's going to be with me. He's coming with me to Eureka Springs. Cool. So you get to meet him. But I'm sitting here getting ready to do a podcast, and I didn't have my camera on. I wasn't recording, but the camera was on. I was getting everything set up, and I happened to look up, and I saw this little ball of light. Whoop, went like this and back behind my head, and I scrambled, and I said, "Hey, I wasn't recording. You need to come back and do that again so I can record it." And you see me scrambling, pulling my mic up, getting my camera. It came back, and it did exactly the same thing it did the first time. And I said, "Oh, thank you." I said, "Who's here with me?" And I was so excited. I sound like an idiot on this tape. But then I said, "I'm going to push my luck and see, will you come back one more time?" And it didn't come back, but my ring light, my old ring light, got real bright and flared really bright. I mean, you could see it all over my face. And then it went down, and I'm like, okay. And then I said, "That was so cool." And when I said that's so cool, the ring light flared up again. Just like I was saying, yeah, wasn't that cool? Check this out, right?
Yeah.
That never happened before and has never happened since. And finally, I got this new one I was just telling you about. But I mean, and that ring light was, USB powered. It wasn't a battery operated thing. So that wasn't, I mean, just
so it would have been consistent.
So I'm going to share stuff like that. I'm going to share some of the lucid dreams that I've had recently and some of the things that make me think that, I maybe even go somewhere when I go to sleep, and that there's life all around us that I feel like our brains aren't made to receive everything that's around us, so we can't perceive it. It's like, and I think of us, we're like tube type radios in Adobe digital surround sound world. And I imagine I'm sitting here in my office and I got like 7 Wi-Fi signals going right through me right now as we speak, because my neighbors and everything, I don't know that. I can't see them. You know why? Because I'm not a router or a computer or a cell phone. I'm not wired to pick any of that up. So therefore, I don't know that. I don't even know it's there unless I have one of these, Sure. That's the way I see humans and human brains and the life that actually exists right here with us. We're just not able to perceive it. But sometimes, like, I don't think I'm different than anybody else. I think I was born with all the same stuff, hardware everybody else has.
Sure.
But because of the contact that I've had, I think maybe as a side effect of the contact, or I don't know, it could be, different. after June 30, 83, I felt like I got a new wire harness. Like I said, I felt different. And I began to perceive things around me that I didn't even know was there
An
before.
upgrade, as it were.
Yeah. And I think I think it happens to a lot of people like me.
Yes.
But a lot of people are probably just afraid to tell anybody. And I'm like, I don't care anymore. I ain't got nothing to lose. And if I'm crazy, oh well, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm noticing.
But they shouldn't be afraid to bring that out. But
and it's nothing to be afraid of. I think we're made for this.
We are made for this.
Yeah.
And I think that when you start having the perception, because like you're talking about using a recorder, I quit using devices to get EVPs. I like them because I can hear when it's happening. But if I use a voice recorder, just a voice recorder, I get clear, concise, well-spoken EVPs.
I don't use any of that other stuff. Just my H1 recorder.
Mm-hmm.
And they call me the antenna.
Yeah.
My paranormal groups, they call me the antenna because my recorder gets the best EVPs.
Yes. And I've got an H4 that I have such a struggle trying to run that thing. But should have got my H1.
Yeah, very easy.
But I use a Sony and I use just the small ones, like the dictation kind.
Yeah.
And I get, what Carl plays some of my EVPs right there. And that's excellent because Carl said that we got great EVP on our show with no equipment.
Greg and I used to, whenever we recorded podcasts, a lot of times in the intro, afterwards, when he played back, he'd hear EVPs in the intro to our podcast.
That's crazy.
Right? It's exciting. To me, it's exciting. There's a whole world out here going on right around us all, people. And to me, that's just so
dimensions.
Exciting.
I mean, it's dimensions.
Absolutely.
We live in a dimensional world.
And I feel like the contact that I've had with NHI that people, and I even thought were, aliens flying from another galaxy or whatever. I don't feel that anymore. I mean, they're definitely aliens and they're non-human intelligence, but I don't think they got in a spaceship and flew all the way across the galaxy to come here. They sidestepped here from one space to another. They're doing something that maybe our government knows about. Maybe we don't, but it's
I
more. I
cannot imagine that that's happening in a void.
It's more. Even that little egg-shaped craft in the backyard that night. Now, that thing was about the size of the pump house of my mom and dad's swimming pool, which is not that big, like a mini barn, like a shed you get at Kmart or something, for your backyard, like that size. And there were 6 of those little guys in the backyard. I thought they were kids when I saw them out there. Even if you put 6 of those little kids in that mini barn, it ain't gonna fly all the way across the galaxy. I don't know what that thing did.
No.
And I don't remember seeing them go in there, but that thing is not what I thought it was. And they aren't what I think they are. I mean, they're non-human intelligence for sure.
Yes.
But they're not little green men from outer space. They're from somewhere else, right here.
Well, I mean, I've been to places where a case in point would be Cherokee, North Carolina. And there's a place there called Thomas Divide. And it's beautiful. And I'm under orders not to go at night when somebody's playing poker. So, of course, I would never do that. But it's the most bizarre thing because I was up there one night and I had a camcorder. And I was just like, fooling with it. And these lights, and David got me a topographical map. We've got survey maps. We've got everything. And there's not anything that should be creating this. There are houses over there, but I mean, they're hardworking people. You know, they go to bed, they go to work.
Yeah.
But I was out there one night and I had my camcorder going, and it was so aggravating. And I've been filming them and it glitched. And so I've got they're on the other side of the divide, right? That's like miles across the road, you know, across one mountain to the next. And I looked up and one of the pink lights had come across the divide. And I was like, I'm just fooling with my camera and I'm not here to do you any harm. And I don't really want you to come closer. And it didn't, but it stayed. And it was just hovering like there was nothing under it. I was parked next to the wall because I didn't want to be pulled into the wall. So if somebody came in, I couldn't be pinned.
Mm-hmm.
And and there was a tree overhanging. And I was just kind of like, you know, it wasn't quite completely dark when I went out there because they come out, they start as it starts to get dark. There's not a certain time, there's not a certain place on the mountain across from you where that they just come different times, and there's kind of an orangey light and a pink light. And they're just pretty. And it doesn't happen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been there in the summer, I've been there in the winter. They've been there both times. Both seasons. And so I think that those are something. It's just the most bizarre thing. And David's like, you cannot go up there by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot. I said, well, then you're going to have to quit playing poker at a certain time of night. Your choice. So, but I never get out of the car because I was driving up there one night and I saw a boar with like 13 baby boars. Those suckers can eat you. So I don't fool with boars.
We had a pig farm across the street from me for a while, and then we had one of the mamas got loose, and so my husband had to get his big boots on and try to wrangle her down. And they're mean.
They are mean.
These big hogs that he had were mean. I wouldn't even go outside. So
I don't. I mean, and a wild boar with a litter.
No.
I do not get out.
Your car and drive away.
Yes, I never got out of my car after that. Mm. But it was, those are. I feel like I researched every way for that to be environmental. Right. There's not enough consistency in any of that for it to be just environmental. And it's like the Brown Mountain lights. I mean,
yeah,
they're basically the same phenomenon, but I didn't want to be the person that went missing. Right. So I don't get out. I don't try to interact physically. But that was so funny because it was like when I quit paying attention and was looking at my camera, that one got nosy, and I don't know if it was concern or what brought it across the divide, right? But when I was like, don't come any closer, it didn't. And I really think that interdimensionality is so underrated, but so strong.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
No, I was going to tell you, I had an experience not too long ago. Here, I'm going to see if I can find it. Because if I read it, I've got all my notes here, but it was just so weird. This was in November.
We live for weird.
Huh? Well, I'm the queen of weird, I guess. So I don't know why I keep saying that. Everybody already knows it. But So it was November 23rd, 2021. I was outside walking in the sun, getting some fresh air and enjoying the last little bit of decent weather when these thoughts came in my head, which they had to come in my head, but somebody was there. I had my earbuds in and it was daytime. I was walking, I was listening to my favorite tunes, feeling real zen and just kind of just really relaxed, right? And I hear this voice come up behind me and he says, "Hey, Deb." And I thought it was one of my neighbors. I pulled my earbud out and I turned around and I said, "Hello." And I looked and no one was there. And I looked around and I thought, somebody's pranking me. Somebody's hiding behind a shrub. Then I'm like, "Hello, hello," you know. And then he just starts talking. And it's like he's standing right next to me, but there's no one there. And it's not coming out of my earbud because that's in my hand. Right. And it startled me at first. But I'm kind of used to this sort of thing after, 67 years. So I said, "Hello." And he said, this is what he said to me. He said, "Hey," he said, "from this side, you look like a little bright bubble of light just floating through your daily life out here in our darkness. You're brighter than a lot. We see all of your kind out here, but you are only perceivable as light here. But when you see the tiny lights in your darkness, that's how we look to you." He says, "But you know what? Where I actually am, I look just like you." And I thought, and I said, and me being a paranormal investigator, what is the first thing I say? "Well, are you dead?" Like, "Are you a spirit?"
Yeah.
And he laughed, which kind of surprised me. He says, "No, I'm as alive as you are." And I said, "Well, are you one of those gray guys?" Talking about the aliens, right?
Right.
And he says, again, he kind of chuckles a little bit and he goes, "No, they're your future." And I said, "Well, who are you?" And that was the end of the conversation. End of the conversation. I looked around and then I thought, God, I hope none of my neighbors saw me talking to myself standing out here in the middle of the road.
Well, but he knew your name.
He knew my name. And I've had, this is another strange thing that just happened this last year. Remember when we had had the Northern Lights that we were able to see up here? It was about a year ago, I guess.
We got them down here.
That's pretty big deal way down there. It was a big deal to be here. But I was outside in my backyard and I had cut off all the lights so that I could see really good, right? And my husband was in bed asleep. He goes to bed at 7. He's an old fuddy-duddy.
David does, yeah.
But so I'm standing out there and I hear a man say, "Hey, Deb." And I thought it was the neighbor next door. I thought maybe he was outside looking at the lights too. And I said, "Hello?" No, didn't say anything else to me again. I didn't hear anything else after that. But I heard a man call my name. And then the weird part was, like the next day, I get a DM from a friend of mine, an old school friend that I went to high school with. And she says, and because I had put this on my Facebook page, that told, "Hey, I had a weird thing happen last night." And she goes, "I saw that on your Facebook page." And she said, "I felt compelled to send you this poem that I just read." And she sent me the most gorgeous poem about somebody reaching out across space and time to speak to me. And I thought, that's how the universe works. I get all these synchronicities, all these things happen. And somehow someone wanted me to notice this because it came from someone I would have never expected it to come from. And that got my attention. You know what I mean? So it's all these little interwoven synchronicities in my life that just happen spontaneously. That's why I feel now that a lot of the contact that I've had's been more than just extraterrestrial. You know what I mean?
I do. I do think that they're part of it. But we have Noreen in our chat who said she's in the UK and in 2011 saw the big black triangle, and it's a hard thing to explain. But I did feel I had been seen and something was aware of me. And her instinct was to drop to the floor and press herself up against the wall out of sight. which confused me as I hadn't been scared, but instinct took over her body. So, you know, maybe that's pretty intense.
Mm-hmm.
I did not hide from the craft that came behind my house, but I was laying in a hammock, just chilling out, talking to my daughter on the phone. So I feel you, Noreen. You know, it's disconcerting when you see that. But mine wasn't a triangle. Mine was like a pie plate that was in a cloud, like a green cloud. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. But
I think I'm a bit desensitized at this point in my life because it's been going on for 60 years that I can remember.
That was the closest one had been to me, because it was like almost eye level with me, just going between, and it wasn't big because it went between two houses. So,
I do remember being a kid, and we were at the parking lot of the Holy Spirit Catholic Church. It was getting ready to have their fall fest or their 4th of July festival. And Mom, I was standing next to my mom holding her hand and looked up. Everybody was looking up. And there was a ball, a silver ball in the sky hovering over the fall.
I've never seen a ball.
It was a silver sphere, and it was just hanging there. And everybody was staring up there and looking at it. And then it just went away. And it was pretty close.
Did it fade away or did it drive away?
Huh?
Did it fade away or
no,
drive
it just
away?
Went up higher and higher and higher until you couldn't see it anymore, and it was gone. We all stood there and watched it. And it was very close. I would say it probably wasn't terribly much higher off the ground than the steeple of the church. So it was, and it wasn't that big. I mean, you know, it wouldn't have been that big. But everybody was standing there looking at it. I was standing there holding my mom's hand, and she was looking up at it too. I mean, wow. I was really little, but I remember that. There were a whole bunch of the people there that day too. So
isn't it wild how that stays with you?
Yeah, it does. I can't remember what I had for dinner a week ago or even 2 nights ago, but there are certain things that happen to me that just imprint in my soul, and they're there forever, you know, and I don't know why.
Well, because you're meant to know them. I think that when we have interaction that we good, bad, and different, whatever, I think that it is it's prepping. And I know that it sounds crazy, but I do think that it is, somebody has to be calm when stuff starts happening. If stuff starts happening.
I've already had my existential crisis, my ontological shock. I've gotten over it. So maybe I can help other people to get over theirs. I don't know.
That's what I think too. I mean, it's you know, there's just so much. There's so much that we don't comprehend. There's stuff that, like, 2 people can be standing in a room and one of them have an experience and the other has nothing, right? Yep. So it's just, I don't understand that. Is it frequency that one person is tuned to that the other's not picking up? Or is it, you know, Noreen, will you put in what part of the UK you're in, please? I'm just nosy. But, you know, there's, and like, is it we're wired to different, a different frequency from each other? But then again, I can feel my friends, you know, I recognize their energy when they're around. So
here, I can do that too.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, they could walk up behind me, and if I don't see them, but I feel them, I know who they are.
Exactly.
But if a stranger walks up behind me, I don't know them, but I know I don't know them, because everybody's energy is like a fingerprint. It's unique.
I don't know what that is. So maybe I should put on glasses. Do I have glasses? Can you read what that says?
I don't even see anything. Where do I need to look?
The chat. It's in the chat room, but it looks like under comments on your right.
Oh, I see it now. I'm sorry, you guys. I didn't even know there was a chat room here this whole time. I've been running my mouth and I didn't even know. I'm crazy.
That's okay. But is that WIRR?
WIRRAL. The world? Oh.
Where is that, Lauren? What
it's
country
across
is
the
that?
water from Liverpool.
Oh, okay. But I'm hoping to get down into England the next time I go. So I always go to Scotland because my best friend only wants to go to Scotland. So I finally had to put my foot down last time and say, we're going to another part of Scotland. I want to see other things, you know.
I got to go to England once and I absolutely loved it. I want to go back someday.
I would love to go to England. I have a friend that lives down in
I want to live there. Someone adopt me.
Well, she lives in Broadstairs by the Sea in Kent, which is where the Channel train leaves to go into France.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's their last stop in England before they go under. But she's like, you've been to the UK 3 times and you have never come to my house. I said, I'm with people that won't leave Scotland. I will come to your house when I come by myself. So, and David's like, you're not going by yourself. But I have a friend that travels with me, so that works out pretty good. There's a group of us that go to Scotland and go ghost hunting because I'm a paranormal investigator.
Yeah. And I would love to go to a castle over there. Gosh. Oh my God.
We have the best time. And our friends are, well, I've got friends who are Highland Paranormal, which is a TAPS group. But the other group that I investigate with are the guys from Haunted Scotland, the Haunted Scotland investigations, but they do the show on, I'm going to be in so much trouble. I think it's Discovery. I don't know. But they are, because if you're an investigator, you're an investigator, right? And we have been to so many places. And we had 1 year, 2 years ago, some other friends have history and horror tours, and they were just starting their company. So we took the train up to Paris, and they, checked into our hotel and they picked us up. And I don't even know some of the places that we were in. I didn't even know the town names, right? But I was taking pictures out of my bedroom window of the hotel signs so that I would know where we were. They took us to so many places, but Castle Mingus, it's spelled Menzies, but they say Mingus. And that was cool. They had a death mask of Bonnie Prince Charlie in there. Is lots of activity. We went to just everywhere. When we were in Paris, we investigated the hotel. We were at Salutations Hotel. It was really cool because it had the tartan carpet and stuff, and then it had the old hunt ball pictures where they would have the hunt balls there. And Gary was doing haunted tours through Paris, and that place is rocking for investigation. And, but it's such a great place if you ever go, or if you want to go the next time we go. But it's such a neat experience because the people are just brilliant. And it's the safest place I've ever seen. We saw some boys getting in a fight on a bridge over the Ness River, and that was funny because they fight like girls. But they did, but it was funny. But there's everything there is ancient, and everything is haunted. Everything is haunted.
The house I stayed in when I went to England, I went to Sheffield because I actually spoke at Sheffield University, And so I went to London, and then from there I went to Sheffield, and the house I stayed in was older than my country. You know, I'd had slate floors and a thatch roof, and it was gorgeous.
Yes.
And they took me to Stonehenge, and it was like a bucket list.
I want to see that.
It was, you couldn't, I wanted to wrap my arms and legs around one of them and just hold it forever and ever, but you couldn't touch them. They had all roped off, so, and you had to walk around in circles. But I still, just to be there, I was so excited. That was something I've always wanted to do.
Was the energy astounding?
Huh?
Was the energy astounding?
I just felt tingly all over. Like I said, I wanted to just run to one of the stones and just start hugging it, but you know, I wasn't allowed to touch it. And it I was just in awe. I just walked around quietly. I think they had like headphones that you could wear, and they talked about things as you were walking around. You know what I mean? Something like that. Yeah. And I bought a little souvenir at the stand by the parking lot. So I wanted to see a crop circle. And when we went there was still some of that stuff going on. I still probably get some every now and then, but I think, and my feeling with those is that I felt like, at least nowadays, I think people are doing it. But I gotta wonder. It started that way, though. I don't think it started that way, and you gotta wonder who's putting these designs in their head to begin with. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what I thought about. There are certain old school, like OG, some of the early ones, that when I see, I feel some type of way. I can't describe it. Just does something to my body. I have this physical response that I can't even control when I see them. But it's only a couple of them. Some of them are clearly just, y'all need to don't lose your day job because you suck at making crop circles. They're awful and raggedy looking. I make better crop circles with my lawnmower on accident, you know. I do know. I'm just saying. So
Noreen said that she lives across the water from Liverpool. There's a lot of UFO activity in Wales, and they can see part of Wales from where she lives. And she's been fortunate to have had a few different experiences that she's tried to debunk, and they remain unexplained to her to date. So that's pretty fun.
And see, I'm a debunker. I'm probably the biggest. My biggest skeptic is me, because anytime something weird happens, and it's so easy to fall into that rabbit hole of just blaming it all on weird stuff, and I don't want to be that one. And
I'd rather research it.
The natural curious part of me really wants to know. So I will dig, and I will figure out. That's why I was one of the best investigators that Indiana MUFON had for the longest time, because I would dig. And 99% of the time I could find the prosaic explanation for things. And that's the way I've always tried to do my own things. And then, you know, as a paranormal investigator, I've kind of handled it the same way. But, you know, and sometimes I might come off as acting like somebody that doesn't believe in any of it, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. True.
I mean, once you have your own experiences, you can't
put that you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. No, you're done. You're cooked.
But I do try to find, you know, logical explanations. You know, the incident that I had at the old Paulding jail in Paulding, Ohio, right across from Fort Wayne Airport, right across the state line. I was doing a live show from inside the jail, and I did something pretty provocative, but acted like I was innocent. They know, but these cast iron doors just started slamming and banging and being so, you know, but they weren't moving. And it feels like things are stomping around. I feel like I'm hearing this. And then my producer at the time said, I'm hearing this. It's coming through. I'll let you know, because he could hear them talking. And he said, I'll let you know when you need to move. And it wasn't just a couple of minutes later that he said, okay, you need to pick your laptop up and get out of there. And I was like, what? No. He was like, you need to get out of there. So
I've been at a lot of paranormal investigations with a bunch of young kids. And when something actually happened, they all run and scream and carry on. And I'm like, go home.
yeah, you don't need to be here.
No, go home, because,
Yeah.
I'm running towards the sound and they're
'Cause you
all
want to
knocking
know.
me over to get away. It's like, why are
Yes.
you here? Go home.
Well, he was hearing verbiage that I wasn't.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, if they can, but they're not physically moving those doors. Those doors are not budging. It's just the sound of them slamming,
Yeah, that's wild.
and the sound of the stomping and stuff. And it was, that's the one that got me on TV. So I was like, and it was the most terrible TV appearance anybody's ever had. No kidding. It was horrible. I never tell people where I was on that. But I had a hole in my shirt and I didn't know it. Nobody told me. I was just like
my friends would do that to me.
I know, right? I'm like, why didn't you say something? But it was just crazy. But it was that's the most haunted place I've ever investigated. And I live right by Sloss Furnace. So, which is also very active. And they've turned it into a museum now, and the new person over it's always been a museum. But they're like, oh, well, we don't allow paranormal investigation. I'm like, why?
Whatever.
I mean, maybe you should dance with the one that brought you, because if it wasn't for the paranormal community, this would not still be here.
Right.
And, she didn't like that.
Oh, well.
That's okay. It needed to be said. But, she wasn't going to let me investigate anyway. So I just bought a tour. And I went and did the self tour. And it was a good day. And so whenever somebody's like in town and they're like, can we go to Sloss? I said, well, not officially. Hey, Lori. And it's just really, it's such a great location. What did you hear?
Who, me? When?
You look like you heard something just then.
I have my bank of security cameras. The monitor is right next to me, and somebody pulled up in front of my house, and now they've shut their lights off and they're just sitting there. So I've kind of got one eyeball on this. Like, what are you doing? It's 10 o'clock at night here, almost.
Yeah.
So I got my eyeball. I always got my head on 360 swivel. That's how survivors roll. So I just got my eyes peeled. Everything's locked up. Sorry about that. I got
no worries. No worries. But Lori in chat is my bestie that we go over. She comes, we've been three years in a row. And she said the standing stones were really amazing. And when we were there, she didn't know about energy circles, like tree circles and stone circles and stuff. So we went to, I can't remember the name of them, but they're an Outlander thing with stones that they, But it was so interesting because the energy there wasn't what I expected. Are they still there?
They're just sitting there.
Yeah. Maybe they don't know you're up. So
I don't know who you are. I don't know.
Yeah.
Life is weird.
Life is weird. But so we were in Dunkeld, and they had beautiful tree circles, and she was having something. Oh, she had something wrong with her. Was that where you had something wrong with your shoulder and I fixed it? But when I went to fix her, the muscles, and I just, flowed, and she was like, whoa. And I was like, it's fixing it, right? She said, that's so strong. And I'm like, oh. I'll dial that back a little bit because you never know. I don't know. And so I was like, you need to, no, it wasn't Stonehenge. It was up in Scotland. And it's the, Lori, put that in there. It's the ones that they actually touch to come to you, to change time. But I was so amazed with the energy there, and that she was, she didn't know. So I showed her when we were in Dunkeld, it was by the river, it was such pretty trees and so many circles. So when we got up to the stones, she was like, oh, look, there's tree circles and I'm like, yes, there are. You know what to do with them. So, it's amazing the places that you can find to heal, and you don't even know they're there. But that was a whole different topic. Jump on you. Sorry.
That's all right. It was interesting. I was interested. I love all that kind of stuff.
I love energy. I'm an energy worker, and it's cool.
It's all around us, and it's all a part of us. And I mean, that's one of the things I said earlier. I was trying to practice my skills and hone my skills, and I want to be able to control some of the things I can do. You mentioned earlier about the spoons bending and all that jazz.
I'm bringing some.
I came home and I was practicing it, and I was getting really good at it. I mean, I've got some that are like triple and quadruple twisted, and I made so many of them that I made myself a mobile with all my spoons.
Oh, how cool.
And it's really cute.
I still have mine. I still have my spoon. My husband trips out on it when he sees it.
And the funny thing is, my hands, I have arthritis. I have to get my husband to open a bottle of water for me. Sometimes I have to use both hands to open the door. I had to buy these little things to stick on them. I've had surgeries on my hands. I've had 5 or 6. And yet when I go to do this, as soon as that starts feeling hot and I start twisting, and it gets hotter, as I twist, it gets hotter to the point where when I've got like a quadruple twist in the spoon, it's hot to touch.
Yeah.
It's really hot. And then when it cools off, you will never bend it back. Dave tried to bend him back and straighten him up. And he's like, how the hell did you do this? I'm like, I don't know. They just do. I just do. He goes, you can't even open a bottle of water, but you can do that. I'm like, when I was a kid,
I would melt the lid off the water. Yeah.
When I was a teenager, I was 15 years old, and I will never forget this because my sister Kathie said something to Budd on the phone, and I actually have the recording of her talking to him. And she said, Debbie has powers that I don't understand, but if she could ever learn how to control these things, she'd be something. She told that to Budd, and I had no idea that she thought that. But when I was 15, and she was older than me, she was 11 years older, she decided that we were going to refinish Mom's kitchen cabinets for Mom and Dad's anniversary present. So we were going to take all the brass handles off and clean them real good and polish them. And then Kathie was going to refinish the cabinet faces and make it like a new kitchen, for Mom for their anniversary. So my job, I had the crappy job of sitting in the stone driveway with the scrub brush and a 5-gallon bucket and a bottle and some soapy and to clean all these. And my parents smoked. So, there was nicotine.
Oh, so much. Yeah.
And I was not a happy girl. I was pissed. And I was mad at my sister for making me do it because you did not tell her no. And she was like the second mom, the boss, the queen of the place, right? And so I'm out there just cussing her like a sailor, scrubbing these things. I got my hands in this bucket of water. So I can't see what I'm doing. I just know I put a brass handle in my hand and scrub it with this brush and get all this cigarette smoke and gross off of it. She comes out to check on me and see what I'm doing. And so we dumped the bucket out. I said, I think I got them all clean. I don't know. I didn't really care. We dumped the bucket out and hosed them off. And about half of them were so twisted that we couldn't use them. We couldn't make the holes. They were so bent and twisted that we couldn't make the holes go back in to the cabinet. So my sister ended up having to buy a whole new set of pulls, which made her mad.
Yeah.
She was yelling at me because I did this and we were trying to bend them back, and they're brass, solid brass. They weren't going anywhere. I don't know how I did that, but I guess I did.
Anger.
She
because you were angry.
And she told Budd about, my powers, and if I learned how to control them. And I'm like, good God, if I learn how to control this sort of thing, I could be dangerous.
I rule the world.
I could be dangerous. So anyway, I've been messing here lately. For the last year, I've been messing around with kinetic energy, where you move things.
Yeah.
And I've had some minor success. I need to practice more. I don't spend enough time. But like the spinning wheel and things like that, I've been able to actually get them to move, even with the glass dome over them. So I know, and I wear a mask and all this stuff when I didn't have the dome. I mean, I've been working on stuff like that, trying to cultivate that. For some reason, something keeps pushing me. Remote viewing, something I've been fascinated with.
And I've been doing, but I'm not very good at it.
I'm not very good at it. I don't think I'm very good at it. I have a couple friends that are remote viewers that say that I have promising, that I do pretty good, but I need to practice. I just need to get my head focused. My problem is my brain is thinking like 4 things at once. And I can't even really meditate worth a damn because I can't quiet down my brain.
Let me tell you, I thought I had Alzheimer's, and we're going to have to go, but I just want relevant to that. I thought I had Alzheimer's, got tested, have adult, postmenopausal ADHD. My brain is always very disoriented, and it's just crazy. I got treated for that, and my focus, I could probably do it now. So that was something, because if you start noticing that, because it's a collagen loss thing, that's all it is, and it creates that ADHD.
I did not know that. How about that?
But those stones are the clavicairns, because they are, they're it's grave sites basically, and people are buried in them. But the trees, and they have rock circles around all through. It's really interesting. The energy there is bizarre and amazing. So you would get off on that.
I'm sure I would absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Maybe one day the universe will send me that. Send me that way.
Get somebody to book you out there.
Yeah. That'd be the only way right now.
Hey, they have I had actually gone out for the Scottish UFO and Paranormal Conference.
Oh,
so they have that. And I don't think that they would have a lot. I don't think they would have a lot of money. It was tiny, but it was really good because good people. Malcolm Robinson was there, and for the paranormal, for the UFO side, and then they had. It was amazing, actually. They had a witch and they had a psychic, and I can't remember who the other person was, but it was good. But we're going to have to go. I can't believe that 2 hours has gone by. Yeah. So thank you for coming. You're going to have to do this again. It was really great catching up with you, and I'm going to get to see you next week.
Yeah, it's going to be so much fun.
I don't know what to think about all this stuff.
Yeah.
I do want to go get dinner.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll figure it out. And I know Greg wants to go have a look at the crescent.
Yes, I want to go look at the crescent too. Carl's going to be there with his bride. Carl, the guitar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's Carl Albertson.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I introduced y'all. I'm sorry, Carl, but
you might have.
But
I was focused on that guitar when he pulled that up. I'm like,
I know, right?
Yeah,
he is so gifted. He is bizarre with his. He's just brilliant. But bizarre skills. He just has mad skills. It's crazy. You can do anything.
That's awesome.
But thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I've just enjoyed you, and for everybody listening, because I know there's people out there, and I'm just so glad that y'all are. And we will see you next week. Same cat time, same cat channel. I will be in town for this week's fate. And then I'll leave Thursday to go to Ozark Mountain UFO Conference. So there'll be all kinds of information coming out of there. So we will talk to y'all soon. Be blessed. Have a great week. Good night.